What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, guys, so we are basically going to continue our coverage over the Norman Osborn Thunderbolts era. So let me explain. So after Civil War, the American government made a law that if you're going to be a superhero, you're going to have to register to be a superhero in America. Now, of course, you had some heroes who basically disagree with that law and some agreed with the law. The ones who did agree was Iron Man and his crew. On the other side, it was Steve Rogers, Captain America, and his crew who disagreed with that new law. Now, of course, you had the American government also make a brand new superhero team. Not really brand new, but a new version of it, and that was the Thunderbolts. Now, before the Thunderbolts and Civil War, they were basically a team being run by Songbird. But then the American government took over and basically handed the team over to Norman Osborn to be in charge. Now, after Secret Invasion, basically Norman Osborn took the kill shot on the Queen Scroll to basically save the world. And so when he did that, the American government promoted Norman Osborn into the role of Homeland Security. And so he got rid of SHIELD and brought in Hammer, his own organization. Now, while he was doing all of that right there, he did also form the Dark Avengers. But when it came to the Thunderbolts, the team he was assigned to take care of, he got rid of every single person on the old team and brought in a new team to basically make the new Thunderbolts. While the old Thunderbolts went to make the Dark Avengers, or some just left the team completely. And so this is now Norman Osborn's new Thunderbolts team. A bunch of characters who are kind of like C-list characters who were brought together to work for Norman Osborn. But as this series goes on, we're going to learn a little bit more about each of these characters, especially the Black Widow on this team. And the reason why I say that, because this is Black Widow 2, not the first Black Widow that most fans care for. This is the second Black Widow that first appeared, I want to say, in the first storyline of New Avengers. Now, with that being said, Norman Osborn went out of his way to recruit her and basically make her the field leader for the team. So anytime the team is in the field, she is in charge. Now, right now, we come to see her talking to Ghost. And the reason why, because basically, she is meeting with every single member of the team, and Ghost, of course, being the last one she has to meet. Now, here's the thing, though. When it comes to Ghost, though, Ghost is very untrustworthy because basically he's very sneaky and very sketchy. Now, with that being said, it's also Ghost kind of having that past of being a character who basically no one can trust. And so Black Widow wants to know, why in the world is Ghost on the team? Because everybody else is on the team for some kind of strange reason. Power, money, and the list goes on. But for Ghost, she has no idea why he's on the team. But basically, you have Ghost trying to talk to Black Widow in a way like, yes, you can trust me. I'm not here to kill anybody, kill Norman Osborn. I'm here for my own reason. I just can't tell you. Now, of course, you do have Ghost and Black Widow show each other their cards, which basically means like they don't like each other and they don't trust each other. But of course, they have no choice but to work together because Norman Osborn did recruit both characters. But you have Black Widow tell Ghost that basically he should watch her back because all the food that he's been eating was containing nanobites that could basically shut his body down. And so with that being said, is her saying, you think you have me, but I have you. So don't mess up because I don't trust you. But that is the moment you have Ghost tell Black Widow that basically he wants to meet with her boss and not Norman Osborn, her real boss. And so we're left to believe that this Black Widow is actually a spy for somebody else. Now, of course, we actually do pick up with a homeless camp. Now, if you have been watching all of my videos, you basically know where this is going. And what I mean by that is basically this homeless camp is right now being destroyed by Hammer. And remember, Hammer was what Norman Osborn brought in to replace S.H.I.E.L.D. when he basically got promoted to Homeland Security. Now, with that being said, though, this homeless camp is getting kind of destroyed by some Hammer agents. Now, while you have these agents trying to get rid of this homeless camp, that is the moment we see the return of Songbird. And that's why I say, if you saw my earlier videos, remember, after Songbird had basically fought against the Thunderbolts, she disappeared. She disappeared after Norman Osborn tried to kill her when he was basically firing her from the team. But of course, she escaped, but she stayed hidden from the world. And the way she did that was hiding out in homeless camps. But with this camp being under attack by Norman Osborn's new Thunderbolts, you basically have Songbird step up and use her powers as a way to kind of protect these homeless people. And of course, once she's able to actually take out these Hammer agents, she leaves, and of course we know that basically now she wants to go after Norman Osborn for what he just tried to do. Now, we actually do jump over to Norman Osborn because remember, Norman Osborn is the one in charge of the Thunderbolts, his Black Ops team, the team he wants to use because sometimes you need a team to go do dirty things, and he does not want to use his Dark Avengers for those dirty things. Now, with that being said, we actually do see Norman Osborn bringing in another character. Now, this character is going by a different name for this story, and a couple more we're going to do after this video right here. But after a couple videos, we're going to learn the real name of this character, and that character right now, his name is Scourge. Now, of course, apparently his face is very messed up, and Norman Osborn gives him some kind of face mask to protect his face, but to also hide his face. And with that being said, you didn't have Victoria Hand walk in. Now, Victoria Hand is really kind of like Norman Osborn assistant, and basically she's here to tell Norman Osborn that, hey, someone saw Songbird. And of course, for Norman Osborn, he wants her dead because when Songbird was on the Thunderbolts with Norman Osborn, she challenged him. She gave him a hard time and made his days a living you know what. And so basically right now is him saying, ooh, Songbird's back. You know what? I think it's time for us to get rid of her. So Scourge, how do you feel about your next mission? And Scourge is down to go after her, to basically get rid of her. Now, we didn't actually pick up with Ant-Man and also Paladin. Now, this is the third Ant-Man, and this is Eric O'Grady. And Eric O'Grady is basically like your evil Ant-Man. Like, he's a bad guy Ant-Man, but he's always kind of tiptoeing on the borderline of being a bad guy, being a good guy. Like, he wants to do good, but he also does bad things. It's a very interesting character. Now, of course, this is right before he joins Steve Rogers' Secret Avengers. And so basically right now, with him being on the Thunderbolts, he's technically a bad guy. Now, with that being said, we do see him hanging out with Paladin. Now, remember, we have talked about Paladin a couple times on this channel. And matter of fact, we talked about Paladin back in our coverage over Shadowland, that lovely Daredevil event. But basically, Paladin is kind of like your mercenary. He's just on the team for the moolah, the money. But of course, this is him listening to what Ant-Man is trying to tell him, which is that basically Ant-Man wants to lead the team because Ant-Man feels like he's kind of over his head here, being here on this team. Because when he joined this team, he honestly did not realize what this team was all about. In reality, it seems like Ant-Man was thinking that this would be a cool gig to just take on to make some money, but to also kind of build up his reputation as a superhero. But now he realizing that this team is just a team full of bad guys, especially by this point when they just had recruited another character known as Mr. X. Now, Mr. X, he was not in our last video, and the only reason why, because between this video and the last one, there was a one-shot story we did skip where basically you had the Thunderbolts recruit another character known as Mr. X, this almost perfect killing machine character. Now, with that being said though, is Paladin telling Ant-Man, you're screwed. You're on this team until this team is somehow broken up, because Norman Osborn would not let you leave that easily. Now, right after that, you basically have Norman Osborn call up his team, where of course he calls his team together to tell them that basically their next mission is to go after Songbird. This is Norman Osborn trying to get his revenge finally, but to also finally get rid of Songbird. Now, on top of that right there, that is the moment you have the team actually meet their new team member, Scourge. And again, we have no idea what's the real name of Scourge yet, but of course we're going to learn that name down the road later on in later videos. But either way, once you have the team actually get on their jet, you do have Black Widow 2 go somewhere very hidden on the jet to make a call. And of course, the person she is talking to is her actual boss, which of course means that Black Widow 2 is actually a spy for somebody else. But the person she's a spy for is, of course, no other than Nick Fury. And this is huge because right now, Norman Osborn, one of his missions is to find Nick Fury. Like, Nick Fury has been missing from the world for a very long time. And so basically right now, it's Norman Osborn not knowing that Black Widow 2 is an actual spy for Nick Fury. And that right there is very huge. Now, the story does jump over to a character we have not seen in a little while, and that character is Ab Jenkins. But either way, this is Ab Jenkins, who used to be known as the Beetle, a villain who used to fight against Spider-Man and also the Fantastic Four. But then later on, he began to call himself Mach 4. Now, of course, the last time we saw Ab Jenkins, he was actually the leader of the Thunderbolts, the last Thunderbolts team before Norman Osborn had took over. And matter of fact, that team was known as the New Thunderbolts. It was a series that come out at the same time Marvel gave us the New Avengers. Now, with that being said, after that series ended, basically Ab Jenkins just stopped being a Thunderbolt. He was just your regular guy. And so right now, we actually do pick up at him right now with the Fixer working on a new suit, basically a new Mach 4 suit, so that he can still somewhat be a hero. But while testing out his new suit, well, that is the moment something does crash right into his building. And of course, that something is no other than Songbird. And this is Songbird coming to Ab Jenkins in the Fixer basically for help, because now she knows that sooner or later the Thunderbolts will come after her, which she is correct, because again, she did show the world that she was still out there. Now, that is the moment where we basically pick up with Mr. X and Headman. Now, remember, Mr. X is basically this perfect killing machine, and he joined the team over a storyline that we did not cover because it was literally just one book, and honestly, I feel like we should go ahead and skip it and move on to the next storyline. But either way, though, we actually do pick up with Headman talking to Mr. X. Now, remember, Headman is a guy who just basically flies around on a glider trying to cut off people's head. And so that's kind of like the reason why his name is Headman. But either way, you do have Headman actually challenge Mr. X in a fight. Now, like I said earlier, Mr. X is basically the perfect killing machine. He's able to read your moves very easily. It's kind of like him being a psychic. But either way, though, you do have Mr. X being able to actually defeat Headman and kind of almost kill Headman. But of course, Mr. X is stopped by Black Widow 2, where of course she does tell the two characters they need to come on and get on the jet because it's time for them to basically go hunt down Songbird, because that is their next mission, which is Songbird. Now, we do jump back over to Songbird, who's right now hanging out with Abe Jenkins and also the Fixer. Now, of course, this is her kind of asking for any kind of help that they can provide, which right now is not a lot, because with Norman Osborn controlling the Thunderbolts, controlling his own Avengers team, being Homeland Security, and also having Hammer, which did replace S.H.I.E.L.D., Norman Osborn has basically almost all of America covered up. And right now, really, heroes can't do much without running into one of many different Norman Osborn's operations. And so you have the Fixer tell Songbird, we can't do much for you because of Norman Osborn. This is his country now, basically. Like, we can't do much. And that is actually very true. Now, of course, this is not really Songbird saying, hey, you guys, get your outfits, help me out, we're getting the old team together. It's right now more of her kind of weighting her options, kind of figuring out what should she do next. Like, matter of fact, you have Ab Jenkins say, hey, listen, if you want to get the radioactive man who used to be on the team with us, I know where he's at right now. But of course, it's Songbird saying she's not ready yet to call everyone back together. But right now, she's just trying to figure out what in the world should she do next. She does kiss Abe Jenkins on the lips, which of course, that right there is actually very important, because in our last series we covered for the Thunderbolts, they did like each other a lot, but basically never kind of pursued their relationship. And so with her kissing him, it's kind of like, yeah, I still like you. And then she leaves. Now, we do see the Thunderbolts right now on their way to go find Songbird and to hopefully capture her, but we do get another page to just remind us that basically right now, the Black Widow 2 is actually working for Nick Fury, that she is a spy for Nick Fury to kind of spy on Norman Osborn to kind of hopefully bring him down from the inside out. And the following page is really more of Norman Osborn telling Black Widow that basically she better do a good job in capturing Songbird. Like, he wants her captured and locked away. He is tired of running into Songbird. And so right now you do have Black Widow 2 basically say, hey, listen, I'll do my job, I'll capture her. But of course, right now, we're left to believe that Norman Osborn has no idea that Black Widow is a spy for Nick Fury. Now, of course, you do have the Thunderbolts actually being able to find Songbird, where of course they try to use their jet as a way to bring her down. Like, they're firing all kinds of missiles to hopefully bring her down. And of course, Songbird is kind of able to dodge most of the missiles as a way to stay alive. Now, you did have Songbird basically take one of those missiles and makes those missiles crash into the jet that the Thunderbolts are basically using right now, which of course bring their entire team down to the ground. Now, Songbird was also caught in the blast, so she's also brought to the ground as well, thanks to her kind of bringing those missiles right back to the Thunderbolts. Now, this actually leads into one of the biggest surprise of the book, because after the crash, you have Songbird get up, but she knows she has to get out of here, because if she doesn't, basically the Thunderbolts are going to capture her. Unfortunately, she does run into Black Widow 2. Now remember, Black Widow 2's name is Yolanda, but this is where things get crazy, because you did have Yolanda actually wants to help Songbird get away from the Thunderbolts. And you have Songbird like, wait a second, why are you helping me? Like, are you basically working with the Thunderbolts? But Songbird has no idea that Yolanda is a spy for Nick Fury. She has no idea. But that is the moment we come to find out this is not Yolanda at all. That basically the person who's pretending to be Yolanda has been using S.H.I.E.L.D. tech that changes her body appearance completely. It means it makes her shorter like Yolanda, her face, her hair, all of that. But this is not Yolanda. This is Black Widow 1, Natasha. She has been basically pretending to be Yolanda as a way to join the Thunderbolts to bring them down from the inside by being a spy for Nick Fury. And you're kind of like, what? Now, of course, when we do get into the third chapter of this storyline, we actually do pick up with Black Widow and also Songbird trying to escape the forest that they're basically trapped in alongside with the Thunderbolts, the actual rest of the team of the Thunderbolts that has not portrayed Norman Osborn. Well, not yet. But of course, while you have our two ladies trying to get away from them, of course they do run into Mr. X. And like I said earlier, Mr. X is basically the perfect killing machine. He is able to read all your kinds of moves and know how to block them, defend against them, and to basically kind of get around them to attack you next. And so right now you have Mr. X trying to fight against Black Widow. Now remember, when we covered Taskmaster, that storyline takes place 11 years after this one in real world time. And in that book right there, it said Black Widow was the best killer in the world. But of course, now you're wondering, is that true? Because this book right here says Mr. X is also probably the best killer in the world. Who knows? Either way though, you have the two characters fight against one another, and of course you do have the rest of the team kind of getting closer to the battle, which means that if Black Widow and Songbird want to get away, they have to leave now and also lose Mr. X. And so thanks to Songbird power, she was able to kind of knock out Mr. X and help her and Black Widow actually get away. Now, right after they do get away, you do have them basically be confronted by Ghost. Now, remember, Ghost is still technically part of the Thunderbolts, but Ghost is also trying to bring down Norman Osborn. And so you have Ghost call up his team and tells his team that he does have Black Widow and Songbird, but in reality, he gives them a false location, which is 4 miles away from where they are right now, to hopefully give Songbird and Black Widow the chance to actually escape before the Thunderbolts come back around to actually capture them. And so, of course, you do have the two ladies being able to actually get away. Now, other two ladies are actually getting away. The big question is, though, what is their next move? Because they have to go somewhere to basically hide from the Thunderbolts and Norman Osborn. Where, of course, you do have Black Widow tell Songbird that she does have somewhere to go. And basically, it's just some kind of hidden safe house underneath some kind of baseball stadium that Nick Fury had built. Here comes the problem though. While you have the two ladies actually going inside the safe house, well, they didn't know they're being followed by Ant-Man, because Ant-Man is one of those characters that a lot of people forget about, and so he was able to kind of sneak around behind them to figure out where they're going, and of course, he now knows where their base is, which of course means he's going to tell the Thunderbolts. Now, of course, when they get inside the base, they are confronted by Nick Fury. Now, Nick Fury is not happy, and the reason why he's not happy is because he already knows that basically Black Widow and Songbird were followed. They were followed by Ant-Man. And so, of course, you do have Nick Fury tell both ladies they have to get to cover. And you have Black Widow like, what do you mean? And that is the moment the base does get attacked by the Thunderbolts because they were followed by Ant-Man. And of course, this does lead into a small battle, but this battle is very short-lived. And the reason why, because you actually have the Thunderbolts being able to overrun Nick Fury, Black Widow, and Songbird to the point there is a small explosion that basically knocks out all three characters. And this leads into the very important big thing about the storyline. And what I mean is that when you have Black Widow, Songbird, and Nick Fury wake up, of course, they all been bound to chairs, and Norman Osborn is there as well, because this is a big day for Norman Osborn. He'll be able to actually get rid of Nick Fury. On top of that, get rid of Songbird, somebody he's been wanting to get rid of, and then also kill off Black Widow. It's basically Christmas for Norman Osborn, a very early Christmas. Now, with all that being said, though, this is the moment we come to find out that Black Widow had technically never talked to Nick Fury. And what I mean is that basically Norman Osborn has been pretending to be Nick Fury this entire time, because basically Norman Osborn had been sending emails to Black Widow believing that she has been talking to Nick Fury, which of course made her believe that Nick Fury had called her up and basically asked her to pretend to be Yolanda because Norman Osborn wanted a Black Widow. And so when Norman Osborn did recruit a Yolanda, even though we now know it never was Yolanda, it was Norman Osborn recruiting Black Widow and making her believe that she was working for Nick Fury this entire time, to basically have her as a way to lead him right to Nick Fury, because when her cover gets blown, she'll run to a nearby safe house. And when she runs to that nearby safe house and runs to a Nick Fury, well, of course, that'll give Norman Osborn a chance to find Nick Fury and capture him. And so this entire time, she never talked to Nick Fury. It was always Norman Osborn. Now, this is where things get even crazier, because then when you have Norman Osborn tell the Thunderbolts to take Songbird and Black Widow away, he turns around and shoots Nick Fury right in the head. And so then we actually pick up the next chapter, where basically you have right now the Thunderbolts getting ready to kill off Black Widow and Songbird, because Norman Osborn did tell his team to basically go ahead and cut their heads off, that he wants the heads of Songbird and also Black Widow. Now, of course, you had the Thunderbolts take the girls away from Nick Fury after he got shot in the head by Norman Osborn, but either way, though, this is where you have the team kind of split in half, where Paladin and Ant-Man, they're not really okay with basically killing someone in cold blood. But when it comes to Mr. X and Scourge, and by the way, Scourge just got promoted to field leader since Black Widow was basically not a real member of the team, that those two characters are all like, nah, let's go ahead and cut their heads off. What's the problem? And so you have two sides right now kind of deciding what to do with Black Widow and also Songbird. Now, Headsman was told by Scourge to go ahead and cut the heads off of Black Widow and Songbird, because his name is Headsman. He wants to go around and cut folks' heads off, and this is the perfect time to actually do it. But of course, he gets cold feet because he feels really bad about the idea of actually killing off Songbird and Black Widow. And so that is the moment you actually have him decide that Paladin and Ant-Man were correct. And you have Headman take his axe and takes it right into the chest of Scourge, to come to find out that basically Scourge is a cyborg. And so now the big question is, who is this guy? Now, this does basically lead into the two sides fighting against each other, where you have Paladin and also Ant-Man and also Headman fighting against Scourge and Mr. X. And of course, while the two sides are fighting against one another, at the same time, you got to count Black Widow and Songbird, because they were there and they were about to get their heads cut off. And so, of course, they do join in the fight. Now, the reason why those two characters actually join into the fight is to basically break free, to break off their bondages and then to get away. And so, of course, that actually happens. Now, while you have everybody fighting against one another, you have to realize there is a character missing, and that character is going to be very important down the road. But while you have the two sides, including Black Widow and Songbird, fighting against one another, the ladies, they get away. Paladin and also, I want to say Ant-Man as well, and Headsman were able to actually defeat Scourge. Now, of course, Scourge does get knocked out. And the question is, though, can our three characters deal with Mr. X now? Because Mr. X actually agreed with Scourge by cutting the heads off of Black Widow and Songbird. And so with Scourge done, it's now kind of down to Paladin, Ant-Man, and Headman to deal with Mr. X. And of course, Mr. X is a perfect killing machine. And so right now, for these three characters, it's not a fair match. But of course, that is the moment our missing character does reappear. And that character is no other than Ghost. You have Ghost reappear and basically use his powers to knock out Mr. X. Now, you also have Ghost basically use his powers as a way to shock the mind of Scourge and Mr. X to cause short memory loss. So basically, they have no idea or remember what basically happened in this moment. And so, of course, Paladin and Ant-Man and Headman, they could basically lie to Norman Osborn and Scourge and Mr. X to say, hey, this what happened. This is how Black Widow and also Songbird got away. Is to basically keep Paladin, Ant-Man, and also Headman alive, and also keeps the team together. And Ghost, yeah, he's still trying to bring down this whole operation from the inside out. Now, getting back over to Songbird and also Black Widow, they have to get away. Even though the Thunderbolts have been basically taken care of, they still have to get away because the base they were supposed to hide in is now surrounded by Hammer. And remember, Hammer was replaced by Norman Osborn. And so right now it's them realizing they have to go. And so basically it leads to them kind of getting into a police chase style where of course you have Hammer chasing after them because Black Widow and Songbird basically stole a car. And so we get this police chase style chase, and of course they're trying to get away, but they're having a hard time getting away. Now there is a moment where their Jeep they stole actually blows up, and that right there is very huge because they were on a bridge and that Jeep does go over the bridge, and it does look like that basically they are going to die, but that is the moment you have Mach 4 appear. And remember, Mach 4 is Ab Jenkins, who used to be a Thunderbolt alongside with Songbird, and so he does fly in, grab Black Widow, grab Songbird, and they get the heck out of there. So Black Widow and Songbird get to live for another day. Now, we actually do jump over to Norman Osborn and also Scourge, because this is Norman Osborn very angry about the idea that basically the Thunderbolts failed and Black Widow and Songbird got away, especially Songbird. Now, with that being said, you do have Norman Osborn tell us who Scourge actually is. And we come to find out that this cyborg character, Scourge, is actually Frank Simpson, aka Nuke. And this is huge because remember, Frank Simpson was part of the Weapon Plus program. Weapon Plus was basically an operation that was made to kind of make different kind of weapons out of people. It all started with Steve Rogers, Captain America. After that, you basically had different weapons being made, and Frank Simpson was weapon, I want to say 7, because Wolverine was weapon X, aka weapon 10, but Frank was weapon 7, and basically they gave him like cyborg body parts, a second heart, and on top of that, pills to kind of make him feel a little bit different in ways. But either way, he was part of the Weapon Plus program. Now, he was badly injured before this storyline, and I want to say because of Wolverine. But of course, now we see that he's back, and he's even more of a cyborg than he was when we last saw him before the storyline. And so basically now, he is the field leader. But that is not the crazy part though. But here comes the big moment, because Norman Osborn says it's time for us to bring in some new blood, aka a Black Widow. And you're kind of like, well, you had a Black Widow. We believed it was Yolanda, but of course it was not Yolanda. It was Natasha. But either way, though, what do you mean it's time to bring in another Black Widow? And I really thought we were about to get a third Black Widow, but we don't. Instead, we see this entire time, Norman Osborn had Yolanda. He had her locked up and basically knocked out this entire time. And now he plans to wake her up and basically use her. And this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.